How's it going, everybody? My name is Warner Fields with Fields of Profit, and today I'm with my friend Alex. I met him a couple times in person. He is crushing on Amazon, so I really just wanted to bring him on the channel, have a little bit of conversation about what's been working for him in his Amazon business. But if you want to just kind of briefly introduce yourself, Alex, let him know what you're up to on Amazon. We can kind of roll from there.
Definitely. Yeah, thanks for having me on. My name's Alex. My social media accounts are AC Flips. I started selling on Amazon about 2 years ago, a little over 2 years ago, kind of just after the pandemic was getting started. And yeah, just found a knack for flipping things, going to Goodwill and eBay, flipping on there, and then kind of rolling into Amazon. But I've been selling for 2 years. I actually recently quit my job back in August of last year to do Amazon full time. And then, Q4 was really awesome, great experience, kind of my first full Q4. And now it's just trying to ramp up sales and find consistency.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So you're doing mostly online arbitrage, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Cool.
It's actually all online arbitrage right now. I was doing retail here and there, but I find my time is more efficiently spent when I'm, sourcing online. So that's really what I stick to.
Awesome. Yeah, and if you're completely new to Amazon, that's basically just a fancy word for buying from Walmart, flipping it on Amazon, tons of other websites out there as well. Do you remember, you're talking like, early pandemic is when you kind of started getting into it. Do you remember any of those like early flips? Like what kind of got the ball rolling?
Yeah, so when I first started with Amazon, right, I was already going to stores, flipping stuff on eBay. Once I really got into Amazon, I think my first big flip was a clearance like Wilson tennis racket bag at Target, and it was on like super clearance for $7, and I sold it for 30, and I made, over $10 profit. And I'm like, wow, this is crazy. If I would have found 5 of them, I could have sold all of them. And that's kind of when it clicked for me that Amazon is way more scalable than eBay, or at least the Goodwill to eBay, or even the Walmart or Target to eBay. So that's kind of when I said I need to really focus my time on how to scale on Amazon, how to find more products to sell on Amazon.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Yeah, maybe even just jumping back a little bit. How did you go from, hey, all right, Amazon seems interesting. Let me get the ball rolling a little bit. What was that progression like for you to go from, let me sell this thing from Target all the way to, quitting your job later on? What was kind of the major things along the way that you ran into?
It was a really slow progression for me, probably slower than a lot of sellers nowadays. So back when I first started, I have been watching zero content about how to sell on Amazon on YouTube or Instagram. So I wasn't in that space. I didn't know sellers to like look up to or to use as a resource. So I was kind of learning things on my own, probably not the quickest way of doing things or the smartest way, but it took me basically all the way till December of that first full year to hit a $10,000 month. So really just kind of like stumbling my way through the first year and making my own mistakes and learning things on my own, making a lot of bad buys. Like I was buying things that showed, a $10 profit, 40% ROI, but by the time it was actually listed, it either sold really slow because I didn't really understand the keep it charts, or it just tanked after I bought it. So kind of I think the biggest, once I started realizing that, man, these products that I'm buying aren't actually making me a ton of profit, I need to go back and detail, why am I making these purchases? Should I be doing more analysis on why I shouldn't have bought those in the past? So it was a lot of like self-reflection, looking at, or learning the keep it charts then, and really understanding what makes a good product. Because yeah, like I said at the beginning, I was buying products that looked good from the start, and then a lot of them would tank after. And I'm like, man, why does this keep happening? Well, you can spot trends over time. The more you understand the keep it charts and what happened when the seller count goes up versus, the price action of the buy box price, just understanding those details, especially, the history of the product with Keepa will tell you, what's probably going to happen in the future. So the better you learn that, the better you're going to be at buying products that will probably sell at what you think it's going to sell at. So I started looking at that. And I think I finally went to like YouTube and Instagram and started, watching your videos, watching Miles's videos, stuff like that, to learn about, more details and things that I probably wouldn't have got on my own. So started learning that stuff, and then things came quicker. Then I started getting better buys and stuff was selling quicker. Started hitting, 30 to 50K months after that. And then, yeah, over this last summer, I got to the point where I was like, man, I'm putting a lot of time in after my full-time job. I was an engineer for 4 years after college. And then, this last summer, I was at a point where I was putting so much time into the business on top of my job. I said, if I could just put all of that time into my Amazon store instead of my, full-time job, I know I could take this to the next level. So yeah, I made the decision to quit in August, and I haven't looked back, going on Amazon full-time now.
That's awesome. Yeah, I get that question a lot. Should I drop drop out of college. Should I quit my job? Like, obviously, please don't listen to a 20 something that's telling you to quit your job or something like that on the internet, right? But
Yeah.
that's good. So for you, that decision was, all right, I'm making good money, doing 30, 50K. So I assume you're, I don't know, making some 6 to 10K a month, somewhere around there, decent money. It's like, all right, I've got the income, time to make the leap. Were you like, I need to fully replace my income first, or what was that decision process like?
It was, I think that was like, I knew that was not going to happen the second I quit. I needed to build kind of a foundation of how I'm going to, well, first, my schedule changed a lot, right? I'm figuring out how to do this thing full time now. And then the scalability factor, how do I continue to grow while still having to pay myself? Because, that's a chunk of your profit that you're not able to reinvest. That, I had that stable income, and then I was, now not having the stable income, needing to pay myself through Amazon. So you kind of have to think of that aspect while still trying to scale as well. So utilizing like the credit cards, I think a lot of, intermediate or experienced sellers know that that's kind of one of the best ways to scale, especially if you don't have the capital on hand. But I was able to kind of balance the credit card with how much profit is coming in, and then, finding ways to pay myself, support myself, and make sure that I can make the full-time job of it work.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think a lot of people are, try to rush into it a little bit. Like, there's absolutely no shame in keeping both. And like, having the job to cash flow a little bit into Amazon, like, it's super powerful. Like, it's not the typical stuff you'll see entrepreneur like, hey, sell on Amazon type saying, but like having a job on the side can be a really big benefit. You also mentioned a little bit of those like early keeper mistakes and all that kind of stuff that you may have made. Is there like one or two like specific lessons that you really learned early on that, maybe guys and girls at home should avoid?
Sure. Yeah. I think one of the bigger mistakes I was making was, you see this keep a chart where there's, the seller count goes up and down, and maybe for a while the price action is pretty flat, but there's not a ton of sellers on it. But you're finding these products, maybe it's like on, Nike.com's homepage, there's 20% off site-wide sale, and you're seeing that it was the third product you searched, right? It wasn't hard to find. That's a kind of some aspect to your ability to determine if a product is maybe going to tank in the future, depending on how many sellers are jumping on or not. So, understand how one aspect, even though if the chart might not tell you, how easy was that product to find, ease of getting into the market on that product. So go back and look at, a year's worth, 2 years worth, however long the product is, of that price history. How many sellers, if there was a spike in sellers at one point, what is the lowest price that, buy box hit at one point? If you found this on an easy sale, do you think it could achieve that same offer count, in the future, and then maybe expect that price to go down? Are you still profitable at that low price again? If you are, maybe it's worth, doing a test buy. If not, maybe you say, I avoid that one. Watch what happens over the next month on that product. And at the minimum, you learned, what happened if instead of making the mistake, price tanking, and then you're selling, your 10 units at a loss. It's almost like paper trading, right? You can look at it, not actually make the mistake, but know that, I learned from that. Now I can make better choices in the future.
Yeah, that's a cool concept. If you're a beginner Amazon, so you don't have a lot of money to play around with, maybe you paper trading a little bit. I like that. That's a cool concept. Hey, I would have bought this ace, and here's how much I would have bought. Like, how would it have done? Like that would be a cool thing to kind of take advantage of there. So you're also mentioning like, looking into sales that were like too easy to find, all that kind of stuff. That's the same boat. Like anytime we are sourcing from like retail prices, say we're buying it from Walmart, we always like bump up our criteria. So that could be another thing that you guys could think about at home. If it was really easy to find, get a little bit stricter. Maybe look for that 50% ROI, stuff like that. So when you're going out and looking for products now, is there a certain strategy that you're really sticking to? Is there something that the guys and girls at home should be taking advantage of as well?
Yeah, I've been really into manual sourcing lately. I think reverse sourcing, I've done a lot of that in the past. Looking at storefronts with SellerAmp, they make it real easy to jump through storefronts when you're looking at certain products. But there is a lot of redundancy with that method, and you find a lot of people are selling the same products, right? A lot of the Nike products, Adidas products, stuff like that. So when you do find a sale, like you can search Rakuten, they have a hot deals section, and it basically maps out all of the different sites that are running sales, and you can start there, to search. Like a Walgreens has, buy one get one 50% off on vitamins or whatever it is. You can start there and start looking through all the products. It's going to take a little bit longer because there's going to be a bunch of products that might not even be listed on Amazon, but I find there's a little bit more barrier to entry. Plus you might find some gems, searching there, because some people, think of it this way. A lot of people, if there's a sale that has, 30 web pages of options, right? Maybe it's like 2,000 items. How many people are going to the 18th out of 30th page to look for products? So if you're willing to do the work, manual sourcing can have a ton of benefit.
For sure. I think manual sourcing like is the best way to source. Like you're going straight to the source and all that. But for you guys at home, like if you open up, I don't know, Walmart.com or Vitacost.com, you're gonna be like, what am I looking at here? There's 10,000 products. And that's where reverse sourcing comes in play. So you know what he's talking about. You're going into SellerAmp, you're opening up those storefronts, see what brands they're selling, what types of products they're selling. That way, when you go out and even if you just want to sell Nike, like we're talking about, right? When you go through and reverse source, you're gonna be like, oh, I remember seeing that particular shoe on somebody's store. Let me see if it's cheap enough over here. So you're gonna be like connecting the dots a little bit as well. So I like that. Manual definitely on the long term, reverse can kind of make you better at it in the short term for sure.
To add to that real quick, sometimes what I do, it's like I think when you really get into sourcing and you're really focused for like say a 2 hour period, you can kind of get into rabbit holes by manual sourcing, right? You find, like you said, find a brand that looks good. Well, let me go look at that same brand and their other products that they listed. And then, now you're looking at other storefronts that are selling those same products. And now you're on a rabbit hole reverse sourcing with different storefronts. And then maybe they have another brand of a product, a couple different ones. Well, then you see that, yeah, like you said, Vitacost now has a sale on that specific brand. Now you're back to manual sourcing. So you can just kind of bounce around and hopefully you find a good rabbit hole that you can go down where you're finding 4 or 5 or 6, profitable leads instead of finding one at a time, then looking at all the other brands. If you can narrow down your search to something has a better chance of being profitable, then it's only going to be a more successful sourcing session for you.
For sure. That's awesome. So, I guess what are you doing in sales like this month now?
For March, it should be about, I think I should hit about 60K. I had, like I said, on my way up in December. December was a really good month, hit almost 100K. January was a pullback like it should be. I was, trying to regroup and everything. Got a prep center in January. So I feel like there was a delay in February and now March is kind of back to full swing, sending stuff to the prep center all the time. So hoping to get back to those 100K months in the next, probably by May, hopefully.
That's awesome. Yeah. Do you think getting to that 100K month, 150K month, is there anything right now that, is holding your business back? I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
So right now, what was kind of like in January and February, the one thing that I was not super focused on was being consistent on the growth. Like I wasn't hyper focused on the growth. I was worrying about some returns that I had and getting, some leftover Q4 stuff sent in. And it was just a lot of like different things, not focused on the highest ROI tasks that I could have. And now I really am focused on my spend goal, knowing that I need to spend this amount to achieve this amount, and it seems fairly accurate. So as of right now, based on my current spend goal, I'm projecting that I hit this amount of sales and then my spend goal is going to increase. So I'm actually looking to get a VA right now. I should have one hired by the end of this week. And that's kind of where I thought, I don't know if that's kind of where you were thinking, like I'm not spending enough time sourcing to hit my spend goal, but that's kind of where I'm at, where I need to get more spend to achieve more sales. A VA is going to help me with that for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Especially if you don't have a VA yet, usually like it makes sense to hire one around I was spending like 20 or 30K a month when I hired my first VA. I know some people hire earlier than that and have success. So I think you should definitely kind of leverage that, especially just because you have so many different sites that you're familiar with is, hey, here's how I source this site. Let me make you a quick video, go source this site for the day. And then just kind of an extension of you. It's just very natural growth for the business, right? Yeah. And for a second there, you're talking about setting a spend goal. Do you want to maybe like briefly talk about how you set that goal? Because I think for me, I know I took advantage of that as well. Some of the guys at home might not be as familiar with that.
Yeah, spend goal is, I think, really important for like any seller who doesn't really have a grasp on their numbers. How I calculate my spend goal is basically I'm looking at my cost of goods sold versus my revenue for the month. You can, it depends. Like if you're buying, inventory at the end of the month, it's not going to sell that month, obviously, but it's still like you need some kind of starting point metric to let you know, like the amount of input you're putting in is going to get you this much output. So cost of goods sold, how much inventory are you buying versus how much revenue does that generate? So what I would suggest is looking back the last 6 months, right? Go back 6 months, look at your spend that month versus your revenue, kind of get an average percentage of that ratio. And then you can get a sense of, okay, if I'm spending 10K, it's generating, 18,000 in revenue. So if I want to hit 50K in revenue, I need to spend, whatever the ratio is there, 20 some $1,000s in spend. So just understanding the number is going to help you, I guess, project out any growth that you want to have in the business for the future.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's something that I definitely took advantage of. And especially for you newer sellers, like set a daily spend goal for yourself. It's just a good thing to kind of have that checklist. Like, all right, I'm going to spend $100 on profitable inventory today. It's going to be pretty difficult to start. A month from now, spending $100 a day on inventory is going to be a breeze. So just setting that goal and hitting it right. So really appreciate you hopping on here. Yeah. And just to kind of start wrapping us up here, if you were that guy or girl sitting at home, you've sold nothing, you've sold $1,000 in sales, what would you have to say to that person? Maybe 1 or 2 points of emphasis that they should really focus on and start scaling.
Yeah. So for like really beginner sellers, there's going to be a couple couple different bottlenecks along the way, but for that beginner seller, the bottleneck for me was learning how to source and finding products. So what I would do is really learn, I tell people spend, if you have 100% of your time, spend 80% doing the sourcing, learning, trying to find products yourself. And then 20% of that time should be spent learning. So watch, our YouTube videos, whatever it is that, however you consume content, but learn how to source, from people that have already been doing it, that are doing, well on Amazon, right? Learn from those sellers that you want to be like, but also spend time doing, because you can watch as much content as you want, but you're going to run into analysis paralysis, and you want to be able to, see the charts yourself, look at the products, find that first lead on your own, build some momentum, and then you will able to start spending. And then the sales are going to come in. If you're buying the good products, sales will roll in, but you can't buy the good products without knowing how to find them.
Yeah, that's awesome. Just taking action, right? Getting a little bit of knowledge and going and apply, and just doing that over and over again. That's how you're gonna scale. It's awesome. Really appreciate you hopping on the channel here. If they want to go check your channel out, I know you've been making pretty good amount of good YouTube videos as well on Instagram, all that work, and they go find you.
Yeah, I make Instagram reels. It's all educational, related to selling on Amazon, YouTube videos as well. It's all AC Flip 17. That's everything from Instagram, TikTok to YouTube.
Sweet. Yeah, we'll get that plugged down below. Go check out his YouTube channel. He's been breaking down different products. And I think right after this, we're actually going to go ahead and record one of those videos for his channel. So that might be up and you guys go check out that video. So go drop a subscription on his channel. If you guys did get value out of today's video, if you could also subscribe to my channel, would really appreciate that. If you guys have any questions, comments, anything like that, drop those down below as well. But I really appreciate you guys watching, and I will see you next time.